So, are you curious?
Welcome to the Curiosity Codex. I am your ardent enthusiast, Kyle Olson. When it's 12 o'clock, we climb the stair. We never knock because nobody's there. Just me and my shadow. On today's chat, Mandy Fabian will talk about her time as a shadow. That is, when she got a chance to shadow direct on a couple of big-time television shows. We'll talk about the differences between directing actors on television, movies, and on stage. But first, she'll talk about crossing paths with a future Oscar winner.
Chapter 8. Get cool and start working.
All right, so when last we left off, you had finished short film. The short film had its run. It had gone through all the festivals and done stuff. But then you got a very prestigious, or at least hard to get, fellowship. But it has a very long name. So tell me again what was it you got? It was a
Sony Pictures Television Diverse Directing Fellowship.
Okay, all right. So
yeah.
So how did you get that? And then what did it involve you sort of doing?
Well, I filled out an application. There's many different studios that offer these kind of diversity programs because traditionally, television directors for years and years have been white and men. And that's not the only directors around, but because, and I completely understand this, I think we've maybe talked about this, but I don't know. When your hour of television is $2 million, it makes sense that you would want to hand it to someone with 20 years of experience, as opposed to someone with a couple of really cool short films, right?
Yeah, right.
So, the fact that the access was for certain people and they had, so anyway, they were the ones that were getting access to money to make shorts and, and the relationships and the networking and stuff. And they were just sort of seen as the next generation. So what these diversity programs were established to try to find the people who don't fit the mold of what we assume the next television directors are going to be like. And some of them are very successful in terms of actually getting people working as television directors. And some of them are less successful, but now they're all really pushing harder to actually make it happen. So that's nice. But anyway,
okay.
The Sony program, when I was in it, Barry Jenkins was in it with me.
Okay.
And so I got to meet him. That was cool. But he had not done Moonlight, and he was just a really cool guy who was in the class with us. There were about 25 of us. Okay. I filled out an application. I submitted my short film that I had done, my second short. And the guy really liked it. I got a phone call. I thought I was being punked. I remember I was on the 101 freeway driving, and he was like, "It's Brett King, and would you be available for an interview? I really like your stuff. I'm specifically looking for somebody who does comedy. You have a great comedy resume. You have experience in multicam, which is super rare. We want to place somebody on a multicam show. So, I basically just want to interview you to make sure you're not a psychopath." And I was like, "Can't guarantee anything, but sure." Tuesday at 4.
Okay, so unless I have forgotten, because we've had a break between the last episode and this one. What was your multicam experience? I don't remember that as being something we talked about. Did you direct a sitcom?
No, I was at this is one of those crazy, like, oh my God, this happened to you. I was at a birthday party or a Christmas cookie party or something of a friend of mine who does multicams. And I swear, out of the blue, he's like, "Hey, you started directing. Would you ever be interested in seeing how a multicam works?" And I was like, absolutely. And so he goes, "Yeah, I know Andy Cadiff. He works on Hot in Cleveland. So I can hook you up with him and see if he does that sort of thing. And maybe you could shadow him." And I'm like, great. I have no idea, when my friend is offering me this, what a huge thing this is. Like, for years after, people have been like, "How do you get your shadowing gigs? Like, what did you do?" And I'm like, wow.
A guy said, "Wanna?" And I said, "Sure."
Kind of. I really didn't even know what I was getting into. And I got my second shadowing gig that way too. Like, it was just this weird thing where people like, "You're directing now, right? Do you want to come shadow on this show?" So I was very, very lucky in that way. And so, so I had shadowed on Hot in Cleveland. And I want to say that I had also shadowed on Big Bang Theory.
Oh, wow. Okay. Yeah. That was, I say at the time, that was probably, at least, if not number one, then at least in the top 10 shows.
Oh God, yes.
Especially for comedy.
Oh yeah. And Chuck Lorre, I think we've talked about this. Like Chuck Lorre is the guy, in multicam, and he is so diligent. And his director, Mark Sandrowski, he's a genius. So like, I never got to trail Jimmy Burrows, but in terms of multicam, I got to trail the very best people, and so that was great because I really watched the masters work and I learned everything about it. And it is very different than directing film or single cam television. Like it's a totally different beast. It's like a different language that you have to learn, but I did learn it and I loved it. I really loved it.
And there were audiences there for both those, right?
Yeah, live audiences. So you meet 10 a.m. on Monday for a table read.
Yeah.
Everybody goes away. The director and the people go over the script. They do a little tone meeting to sort of get a sense of what they need to do. Like, there's somebody going down I think we talked about this. There's a little bit, Santa Claus has to come down the chimney. So we have to figure out how we're going to shoot that part of it.
We need a chimney. We need a suit.
Yeah. It's a really well-oiled machine. Like it's very efficient. And then you rehearse the Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, you do pre-shoots of anything that you don't want to do in front of a live audience. And then Friday you tape in front of a live audience to get where they laugh and, and there's an interesting thing with multicam. There's something called line cutting. Some directors do it.
Okay.
In my personal opinion, I think all of them should, because the guy who did it had the best stuff, right? And he was working for Chuck Lorre, and it was like, it made all the difference. So line cutting is, he not only is working for cameras, right? To tell them where to shoot what and on what line. He's shooting all these 4 cameras, telling the cameras where to go. But then he also tells the guy up in the booth that is switching, like, go to camera A, go to camera C, what lines to go to which shot on.
Wow.
So he can control it, because, he doesn't want you to be in a 3-shot that's moving this way if the joke is happening in the single on the X cam. So
wow, you're right. That is a whole different, just way of thinking. Because it also
really cool.
Because as opposed to single cam drama or whatever, where it's like, you get the shot, all right, good. Now switch. Now we're going to do that. It's like you want to do everything you can to keep it moving.
Oh, no, it's a live performance.
Right.
It's the best of both worlds, because it is theater.
Yeah.
Right. But it's theater where you can tell the audience, now I want you to look at that glass half full of water. Right. Because while they're looking at the stage, they're really looking at the screens, and you can direct their attention. You can tell them what you want them to look at. So they look at the screens, they see that now the camera is showing you the guy in the bathroom with toothpaste still in his mouth, and he's looking shocked like he got caught. You've just told the audience what to laugh at, right?
Yeah.
It's really, it's such an art form. I loved it so much. So I had done a couple of shadowing gigs already.
So what is a shadowing gig like? Is it basically just like you're just the silent observer? You're just sort of you have no official duty. You're just sort of walking behind with your notebook,
yes, you are.
That's really good, and I'm gonna write that down.
Yes, you feel it is so like being a third wheel on a date. You can't imagine. It's so awkward and awful, because, part of you is also like, I am so close to my dream job. Yeah. I just want to do this.
I'm literally like 2 feet over. Like I'm sitting right next to where I want to be. Yeah.
And it's that balance of like, I do have questions, but I do not want to you don't
want to be the one that stops
bother
everything.
The director. Yeah. So, but so I just shut up and listened, and I'm really good at like getting right in there and seeing what I need to see and making myself out of the way and completely invisible and quiet. Like I don't need to be the center, so I was able to do that, but it's still super awkward because you do make friends, but there's also this like, well, don't get too close, because won't be here next week.
Yeah.
But I did have I had a very cool thing happen to me. There was a props gal on the first set that I ever shadowed on, and she worked props. Her name is Holly. She is in my cell phone. I haven't spoken to her since that day, but she told me, I want you to text me or email me when you get your first directing gig.
Oh.
And I have her number in my phone, and she'll be the first person that I reach out to.
Wow.
And I think it'll be pretty cool. She'll be like,
See if she remembers.
new phone, who it is?
Yeah.
But it's great because you do get the crew on everything is always so nice. And especially multicam crews, because they have the same directors over and over again. They become a real family. They have a very family friendly schedule. They're all really happy at their jobs, and they've been doing it for 20 to 30 years. Like they've all just been doing it forever. Yeah. So when somebody new comes on and has questions, they're so excited to answer them. They couldn't have been more excited to see a woman on the set because there are so few female multicam directors. It's crazy. So they were just always really excited to see me. So that was nice. But yeah, you basically, what I do is I do the job of a director without telling anybody I'm doing it. I get a copy of the script. I line cut. I know exactly. Okay. I write down my camera blocking, and here, like if I was blocking here, I would tell A to go here, B to go here, and I do all the blocking and all the thing. And then I compare that to what the actual director does to see how close my instincts are, what different choices he might've made that, I could learn from. But I always did the job because that's how you learn. Yeah. Sitting and watching is like fun and interesting, but you got to exercise those muscles. So
they considered that the people from the fellowship then considered that experience?
Yeah, well, yes, because again, you're talking about millions of dollars an episode of anything. Oh, sure. Maybe not multicam, but I don't know how much those episodes cost, but they also want to know that there's going to be somebody who knows, don't interrupt the director. Don't go up to the actors and tell them my kid loves you. Be cool.
I see. Yeah. Because they're going to be putting you in those positions and they don't want you to be the one to be like, can you sign this?
Yeah. And also, the truth is they wanted me to get a job. So they showed our films to the showrunners. I got in because this particular showrunner who was doing a multicam liked my film and thought it was, I made me a good candidate. So when I went to the set to shadow, it really was like, you're going to shadow a couple episodes and then, you'll be considered to do an episode next season. Right. Okay. Unfortunately, the show got canceled.
Do you remember what show it was?
Yeah, it was the McCarthys. So Brian Gallivan created it. Mike Sikowitz was the showrunner. So he was the main guy.
Okay. That's who you interacted with?
Yeah. Well, he's the guy who saw my film. Okay. Yeah. And said, yeah, let's get her on the show. And then Pam Fryman, who is a huge multicam director. She does everything. She was the director who I trailed, and she was lovely. And she was so great because I had trailed a lot and I had directed a lot. And so she was so great. She's like, you ask me any questions you want. I'm at your disposal. And you already know all this stuff. So, and I was like, well, thank you. I probably do know a lot, but I will ask you the questions whenever I have them, and she was just great. She was just lovely.
So do you then wait for your moment? Like wait until okay, they're redoing the lighting or whatever. So you can be like, I was just wondering. Or do you just sit there quietly until she turns to you and says something? I'm just curious about the social interaction part of it. It's
a bit of both. You know what I mean? Like anything, like I would think of a question and then I would realize I know the answer. I'm only asking a question so I can say something. Yeah. I tried to really be pleasant and engage when people wanted to engage and ask people about their jobs. I mean, that was really, I used it as a learning device. That's what I do that's my go-to trick for everything. Not that it's a trick. I'm genuinely curious, as are you.
Yeah, exactly.
But I have found that I can be comfortable in any party I ever go to. Okay. If I ask people about themselves.
Yeah.
Because I learn about their lives and everybody likes to talk about themselves.
Yes, they do.
I could do anything. I could be anywhere. So I mostly made sure I did my work and watched to make sure that my work was on point. Sure. And then I would ask questions if I had about the work. But Mark Sandrowski was really the one who was like, hey, making sure I was doing it, which I was very impressed by because nobody else did. They were like, okay, I have a shadow. And then that was it. I just watched for the most part.
Yeah.
But he was really taught me about line cutting and also was very blunt with me about things like, when Chuck comes in, scram. Oh. And I was like, yeah, nope. He will never see me,
Wow. All right.
Yeah. which is great. I really appreciated that because
Sure.
it put me not in any awkward positions, and I knew my place, and it was great.
Okay.
I know, funny, right?
Did they now after they send you out essentially to shadow for one episode?
Yes, it was
Okay.
one episode initially.
Okay.
Again, the idea being you get to know the crew, you get to
Sure.
know the producers, and then what would have happened if the show was not getting canceled is I would have come back and trailed another episode,
Okay.
maybe even another one, and then the following season I would have been hired to direct an episode.
Okay. Oh, so there is an actual path.
For that program at that time for multicam, in that, yes. Nobody else. I don't know if Sony has necessarily placed people on shows. I did one of the gals who I was in the Sony program with directed a ton of television, but I don't think she got her first job from Sony. I think
Okay.
she got it because she was just a crazy hustler. And she would also, I think she'd already directed crazy stuff. I mean, she was way overqualified. Like I said, Barry Jenkins was in the class. He was way overqualified. He also did not get an episode of television from that. But then he did Moonlight. Pretty much if he wants to direct any television anywhere,
Right.
he
Everybody will let
can.
him. Yeah.
Yes. So it was interesting. It was a mix. NBC has a program that guarantees an episode
Okay.
for, actually, I think they pick like 6 or 7 candidates and all 7 of them get a show.
Wow.
ABC also, it's a 2-year program. They guarantee an episode for people. And also CBS, I think, guarantees an episode, but that you have to be in the DGA to get into that program.
Okay.
And Warner Brothers now, they did not previously, but now they also guarantee an episode for people. So if you get into the workshop, if you're one of the 8 people they choose,
Yeah.
you will get an episode. But in order for that to happen, there has to be a showrunner who goes, yes, I will take on one of your newbie directors.
Right. Yeah.
I will guarantee them a job.
That's right. Also, they're saying as a showrunner that I'm going to have a first-time director on my huge show that I don't want them to screw it up, and so they have to have a bit of faith as well.
Yeah, but the good news
which
is,
I understand why you have 4 shadow sessions essentially before they let you loose.
that's uncommon. I mean, honestly, like you don't have, if you get hired, you don't have to shadow at all.
Sure.
For me, I would shadow at least 1, maybe 2, because I feel like if it was my first episode, because I'd be like, A, what else am I doing?
Yeah.
B, the most important thing on any television show is the crew.
Yeah.
And if you are good with the crew, you know all their names, you understand their jobs, they love you and are rooting for you, they will make your episode brilliant. If you alienate the crew, or if you're not with it, or you're panicking, you'll lose them and it will be a horrible experience. So for me, I would shadow as much as possible just to be a face, just so everyone can see this girl and go, we're doing this, Yeah. That's what I would do.
How much interaction did you have with the rest of your classmates, fellowship mates, like the other people who were in the program?
Well, what was great about it is there were 2 aspects of it. Like we did, I think, 7 weeks of classes once or twice a week, maybe twice a week, I think. So we would go and we would talk to, the VP of current programming to understand. It's where I learned things like, that not Better Call Saul, but Breaking Bad was such a juggernaut for Sony television, right?
Sure.
It was such a hugely successful show that then in a way pays for them to do other shows that bomb, right? Their slate of things balance each other out. And I had never thought of it that way. I had never thought about how much an episode of television costs and how much is riding on that, Yeah. So it was, we talked to these people who put the programs on the air. It was really interesting to get that perspective. We talked to directors that had been doing it for, 25 years and had been mentoring people and, who really believed in diversity and wanted to reach out and give their little tips and tricks because they weren't afraid of us coming up and taking their jobs. We met with casting people to tell us about their part of the process. Every aspect of television directing, they gave us some sort of little mini class in it. It was great.
Wow. So this might not be a fair question, but having done like an independent film where you were on this stuff and being the director and longer shoots and all that kind of stuff versus the Madison, is it a fair thing to say one you like better, or is it they're such different beasts, even though they're the same, that it's sort of like it scratches a different itch? I might have answered my own question there, and I apologize.
Are you saying multicam comedy versus film? Or
yes, so is there a one that you? I mean, obviously you got to Shadow, so you've been on there, so you felt the energy, even if you haven't gotten to have your name on the back of the chair. But then you also have actually directed a bunch of stuff independent that's yours. Yeah. That you had to do all that stuff. Is there one you prefer to the other, or is it basically like this is football and this is baseball, and sure they're both sports, but there's a different energy to them?
Yeah, no, I do prefer multicam.
Do you? Okay. So you would be happy being the next Jim Burrows?
Nothing would make me more happy. Yes.
Wow,
no.
Okay.
Because I am a theater baby ultimately.
Sure.
So I love a live show.
Right.
I love the schedule of it.
Yeah. The schedule. Of course, we talked about that.
And for me, my favorite part of directing is working with actors and working on funny, right?
Right.
I love setting up a bit. I love figuring out timing of jokes. Jim Burrows is very famously said he used to walk around with his eyes closed and just listen.
Yeah.
To the thing being read, just listen to the words, because for him, comedy was rhythm and music.
Right.
And I feel very much the same way. So there's the fact that you can build a performance, it works immediately. And if it doesn't work, you have a chance to fix it with a live studio audience. Yeah. Brilliant. It's such a fun, playful, obviously also very stressful because it's for network television in a studio, but who cares? It's really fun. The energy is so high. Everybody wants it to work. Yeah. So I love that. And you don't kill yourself doing it.
Yeah, that's true.
So I would say
no shooting until 5 a.m.
Yeah. I have this really wonderful, as maybe you've heard, I don't know. I have this wonderful way of finding the absolute hardest thing to do possible. So in the world of TV directing, that is the most closed off. There's 5 people who direct all of the multicams. And now there's not as many multicams as there are other things, but there's only 5 or 10 people who do all of it. So breaking into that is so much harder, I think, than breaking into single cam. It's all hard. It's all incredibly hard. But so I have not directed multicam yet, but that would be, I loved it. I love the world. I love the people. I loved it. It's so close to theater and funny and everything I love. So yeah, I love it.
What are your feelings on the laugh track?
That's interesting. I find it, I enjoy it when they record an audience's laughter live. That's authentic. Yes. I don't enjoy it when they add laughter like Nickelodeon shows do. Shows that record without an audience and then add the laughter later, I say no. Yeah.
I found a YouTube video someone had made where they took a scene from Big Bang Theory, they pulled out the laugh tracks and replaced it with Ricky Gervais's laugh, just his his way over the top laugh, and watched it, and watching that broke it for me. It broke sitcoms for me, because now I sort of watch it and it's sort of I've seen how the magic trick works, and now it doesn't work on me anymore. So every time now we watch a really high budget big sitcom thing, it's sort of oh man, it's if you take it out, you realize that every character who's sitting around the couch just having their things says something. Then there's a 3-second pause. Then the person answers. There's a 3-second pause. It's oh my gosh. I've seen the code of the Matrix now. Oh no.
You think they're pausing for laughs that aren't there?
Yeah. Because that's the thing is, what did the audience actually laugh there? And also I'm a little annoyed that just because when you get to a certain age, things were better in my day. Having watched everything from Dick Van Dyke Show, I Love Lucy, all the way up to the modern stuff, the fact that they want every line to be a killer. Is like, oh man, you gotta let it breathe. You got if you watch, not the pinnacle of comedy, but Friends, they would have 3 or 4 lines and then build up to the joke. And it got to the point where you get a laugh off of knowing Chandler's about to say something.
Yes.
The slow burn that I feel like that kind of comedy is getting lost now because every character has to be the funniest, smartest, meanest person right from the jump. And so every single line has to be laugh line, laugh line, laugh line, laugh line. It's slow down. Give the comedy a chance to breathe.
I agree.
Thus ends the sermon.
I agree. Just because I love multicam and I got to work on some of the best multicams that exist, that doesn't mean that they're all great television, and that would be hard. I didn't shadow on anything that was a hokey bad script. It was really the people who are at the top of the game, and
you got to the late great Betty White.
Oh God,
to see her work right up close.
I did. She was incredible. She was so nice to me, as was Wendy Malick. Really went out of their way
that makes me happy to hear. I've always loved Wendy Malick.
Yeah, they both went out of their way to come over and say hello to me. They were really, really nice. And Betty White was just so astounding to me because when I worked with her, I think she was 90. She had her 90th birthday or something, and she needed a little help. There had to be somebody there to stand near her.
Sure.
And she needed a little help with her lines. But I got to tell you, man, she'd be kind of an older woman. I'm being gentle. She was an old woman, right? She's 90 and she's there and she's kind of figuring it out. And then it would be cameras up, Betty, you're on. And she would perform. And my God, she could nail any joke. I've never seen anything like it. I mean, any joke, they would rewrite things. And they would sometimes rewrite things, not because her first joke didn't kill, but because it's Betty White. So you'd be now try this. Can you do it like this? And then she would improvise. And you're oh my God. There was no joke she couldn't crush. They could give her the worst joke in the world. And she'd be bah! And just knock it out of the park. It was amazing.
Wow.
Yeah.
So if you had, we'll drift into dream project territory before we get back to the real world.
Yeah.
If you were allowed to have the job, would you do a sitcom as they are being done now, or would you want to do sort of what some of the things we're seeing lately, the live version? Would you have it run like a play, run it for half an hour essentially? Just change what you need to do immediately and then cut it like that. Which would you prefer would you prefer the rawness of the mistakes, or would you prefer the honing in to so that everything is exactly the way you want it to?
Well, what do you mean the way sitcoms are done now?
In terms of from my limited experience, they'll do a scene and then they'll stop, they'll convene, they'll go over, they'll change it, and then as they're going there and then of course then it's longer than it needs to be, and so they cut it down to just the 20 minutes now. I think, how long is this?
It's 22.
It's insane
20,
I think I saw an episode of Bang Bang Theory. It was 19 minutes long.
Oh my God.
Man, let the comedy breathe, people. Sheesh.
Yeah.
That it's basically and everything is polished to precision. So it's all fit together, I think. Or would you prefer sort of that All in the Family kind of just we're going to let the cameras run. We're going to run this whole thing start to finish.
That's the version that I've only ever seen done. I don't.
Okay.
I worked on a show. I was on the set of a show that where there was no live audience. They recorded everything.
Okay.
Without
I think How I Met Your Mother did that. They recorded it all because they had so many setups. But then they would screen it for an audience, so the laughter you hear is actually real.
Yeah.
It's just an audience, the first audience to watch the cut episode.
Yeah, which is great. Which
is fine. Exactly. Yeah. I like that. That was a pretty clever way to do it.
But I like the way I love the way Chuck Lorre did it. I really respected what he did, because you were able to finesse things but again, you run it like a play, because you're going to lose your audience, right?
Yes.
They're not your crew who's getting paid to be there. They get tired and they get hungry and they get tired of laughing at the same joke over and over again, So, you have to keep them interested. So you have to run it like a play and keep them entertained. And shows that's another part of the show biz of sitcoms that I also respect and admire. But I have a dream about doing a feature that's almost run like a play, like rehearsing it like a play and then shooting it almost in real time. There's a certain edge to that makes me really happy. But that said, I'm not an idiot. And I also know it's so great to have choices because choices make you able to offer a better product. So somewhere in the middle, I think is where I'd like to be. But also my dream project wouldn't be a sitcom. I'm just saying, like, as a job, I would love to be a sitcom director. I would love it. But I like making movies in terms of writing.
Yeah. Have you seen Being the Ricardos?
Yeah. Yeah.
What I thought that was interesting, even though it had some narrative issues, but for a Sorkin thing, especially. Yeah. But I really love seeing a little bit of how they would put it together back then.
Yes.
Sort of the differences in comedy assembly back then versus now. Yeah,
somebody gave a perspective on it that I thought was pretty accurate. They said it was like sort of a Wikipedia of Lucille Ball, a little bit. True. Right? Yeah. It was sort of just like the facts and I didn't know all those facts, which I'm ashamed to say. I never read a biography of her because I love her. I'm looking forward to there's the new documentary from Amy Poehler. Oh, great! About them. I think it's called Lucy and Desi. Interesting. Yeah, I really loved watching them sort of step out how she works a comic beat and her being like, it's not enough. It's not enough. That I loved. Yeah, and hearing it from Fred, like the vaudevillian sort of like when he would talk about like how he saw it, like and the timing and the beats and stuff too. That's the part I was like, ooh, can you dig in a little bit on there? No, we're going to talk about the Russians again. Okay. Right. Yeah, exactly. That was my favorite stuff too. Like, and I didn't, Ricky having an affair was sort of like, I don't know. I feel like she would have known that. That storyline didn't interest me as much, but I did think the dynamics of her being a woman at that time, like I actually thought that they could have gone deeper because I thought that was really interesting. I think it's always interesting to me to look at people in history who do amazing things. Mm-hmm. And I go, my God, they had so much less opportunity than even I have. Like they were they had the odds so against them and they still did this thing and defied the odds and broke all the rules. I think it's really cool. Yeah. So then the fellowship then goes through a certain period. You do a couple things and then it just kind of ends. Or is it because you were sort of connected to the McCarthys when the McCarthys went? Well, yeah. So they got canceled. It was, we all go to classes and then a few of us got put on shows and I was put on the McCarthys and the idea was I would work on the McCarthys, but then it all falls apart because it's chaos. It's like, I wasn't like suddenly they did pay me to shadow, which was very cool. Oh, so that's nice. Yeah. It was a paid gig, but, it's showbiz, man. It was just this crazy kind of, but I got to meet the Sony executives and, so if I see them at events and stuff, I know who they are. And all right. Yeah. Are they still the Sony execs? Some people. Some people are still there. I know that there's a lot of turnover in that side. Mm-hmm. No, some of them are still there and some of them have moved on. And, I think it just depends. There are people who, why do we still have childhood hunger? It's very hard to actually make change. There's a lot of people that really want to, and there's people that will do as much as they can for it. And then there's people that are going to make it happen no matter what if it kills them, right? This is true for any issue. Sure. And, making change in the entertainment industry is a really tough, it's a giant, yacht. It's the Titanic. No, it's not. That's right. But, that's right. It does move. It just moved very slowly. Yes, turning that ship, and I get it. I really get it. So that was I like I said, I don't know that my class or any of the classes behind me were very successful in actually getting people episodes of television, but they did they did put us in a place where we could have gotten luckier than we could have gotten if we hadn't been in that place, you know?
Oh, that's a good way to look at it.
Yeah.
And you feel positive about the experience. Like you feel like
I loved it.
You soaked in a lot of.
Well, you and I were saying this before, like, look, and this is something I'm understanding the longer that I do this. And for anybody who is listening to this, who has just started or is just thinking about getting into it, or has been doing it for a while and is thinking about going professional or whatever, the greatest advice I can truly give somebody is really understand what the job is. Because we all have dreams about what it's going to be like. But like for me as an actor, if I had really understood at a bone deep level that, like, look, chick, 85% of your job is getting rejected and auditioning. So as much as you love a character taking over and you love the fantasy of like getting to do a show and creating laughs and doing characters, that's all great. That's about 15% of your actual work most of the time. And the rest of the time, you're driving across town to taste a piece of pizza and go, that's delicious. So you can pay your rent so you can continue to be an actor. So it's like, there's so many of the things that are like, you have to sit for headshots and, you know, pay for exposure to places. There's so much of it is so unglamorous and distasteful and like not fun that you look at the pieces of what it is and go, yeah. And like the pieces of being a writer, right? It's not all like sexy. You're winning a screenplay winning an Oscar for best screenplay.
Like, or you're sitting in a room and they're like, you know what? It's perfect. We don't have any notes and any changes at all. Like this is gold. Yeah. Oh yeah. Every word you put down, it's perfect.
Right. 99% of the time for most of your career, the answer is you're not original enough, you're not cool enough, and you're not. Yeah. And it's really because you're just not working yet. And you're like, how do I start working? Like, I don't know, get cool and start working. It's like, it is such a catch-22, you know, but also you keep working on your craft, right? Like, but you have to, if you look at the fact that like, that program, I didn't get an actual job directing television from that. If I was to poop on that, no, because the whole point of it was to learn more and to get, every time I get on a set, I realize that I belong there.
Wow.
So it's not, for me, it's great to get on set because I go, yes, I'm not crazy. I do belong here. This will happen. This is something that this is where I belong. It's okay.
That's first of all, that's fantastic. And second of all, that reminds me of something actually that John Scalzi, who's a novelist, said he didn't like suddenly wake up and decide he was a novelist. He realized that when he wrote something, what was easy for him was difficult for other people. And so he kind of went, oh, okay, I can do this because this is easy for me.
Right.
And so it was like, okay, I can, that makes it that much simpler. And of course, you know, there's 1,000 other things that has to happen there too. But like, it was that realization of like, oh, okay, for whatever reason, I'm built for this.
Yeah. The temperament and again, it's really just not thinking it's supposed to go a certain way or not taking it personally, I guess. Right. Like just knowing,
which is tough.
Right. Knowing that getting the fellowship and having it be a big deal and having your name in the paper and then having nothing happen, it doesn't mean that you're not talented or that it's not your time or you're never going to work again. It means that's how that one day happened. And your career is this whole big lifetime of days. Because when you do what we do, you can do it until you die. You know, you can write a screenplay that, you know, I mean, every day.
Stephen Sondheim was, you know, still working on his next musical. Yeah. Like when he died, you know, in his 90s too.
Yes.
Like, you know,
so
if you're lucky enough, you can keep working.
For me, anytime I get to be close to it, work on it, you know, just do it. Like it was my dream to become a person who could do this. So every time I get to do it on any level, by any percentage, I go, that makes me feel fantastic. That's the advice I would give is like, you can always do it. So focus on that.
So when you're in the system like that was consuming all your time, or were you developing other stuff, working on other stuff while you were in the fellowship? Or was it like that was the sole focus at the time?
It was not like a full time. It was like
obviously you're a working mother, so like obviously you're doing that at the same time.
Always raising a family, yes.
Yeah.
But I've always been, oh man, it's so funny. I heard this podcast and they were interviewing screenplay writers, and I'm not even sure. It was very fortifying for me because they were like, how many scripts have you written? And they were like, gosh, I don't know, 4 or 5. And then some of them were like 10. And I really thought about it. And I was like, oh my God, I'm like way up there. I felt very good about that.
Really?
No, because I am always writing something or working on something. I was directing a lot of theater at that time.
Okay.
So I directed some theater. I was doing shorts still, and then also writing screenplays. I had a couple.
Okay. Wow. You were just like creatively just flying out of
I love working with people. So I had I think at one time I had 3 different co-writing screenplays being co-written.
Okay.
At the time around that I think that about 2014 to 2017, I think we were all writing projects concurrently, and just,
Sure.
it was practice. It was, and it was great.
Any particular shows that you directed theater wise that were especially memorable to you or favorites?
I did. I didn't do full length plays. I was doing 10-minute, short 1-act play festivals.
Okay.
Which was great. So,
stuff you had written or?
Nope.
Oh, okay.
That was stuff people knew that I was directing, and I did it would be mostly for charity, right? They would do a night of theater to sort of support a cause. And I was very lucky. And I got to actually, one of the writers that I got to direct her play, she was a writer on the McCarthys.
Oh, okay.
But I didn't know that she was going to be the writer. I got assigned to her play, and I was like, wait, I met you on the set of that was cool.
Oh, so so in
Becky
that situation, they basically say, we have this 1 act and you're doing it.
Yeah.
They don't have you go through and find the one that sort of resonates with you. It's just sort of make this work.
No, they just assign you.
Interesting.
Yeah.
Okay.
They match up writers and directors based on your work and what they think that you can do, or what you would like to do with what matches your style. And I got paired with the greatest writers, man. I loved it. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Kelly Younger, Becky Mann.
Okay.
Yeah.
I was gonna say people you have to know their names. I'll think people you still know or are still sort of kicking around.
Definitely.
Awesome.
Because also I had not really directed a lot of theater. I had mostly done film. So I was really I don't know. But at the end of the day, we had a ball, and they were very supportive and very nice to me.
So, okay. So then as a director who has then directed both things, what is the difference that you of a direction you give to an actor on a stage versus in theater? I mean, obviously bigger and smaller.
Oh, wow.
But if someone's not getting it, is there a different way of approaching a stage actor versus a theater actor? I guess I'm asking multiple questions in there.
No, that's a good question. Yes. Because yes and no. So things will translate differently in a theater, right? If you need, I once saw Parker Posey do a play.
Oh, okay.
And I was surprised because I love Parker Posey, but no one said this is a totally different medium and you have to sell a joke.
Oh, it's a very different set of skills.
You got to Nathan Lane this shit, lady.
Right.
So anyway, you would, I guess there is that, there are certain theatrical things but most of the actors I worked with had done stage. So I didn't have to adjust them. Don't hide your face, cheat out.
Oh,
and
right. Yeah.
Don't do this while you're.
Don't stand in front of the other actor. And yeah.
Yeah. It was pretty easy. It's not really about directing the actors so much, because usually also when you're doing comedy, a lot of the rules are the same. Stay as grounded as you can and go as far as you can go. That's true, actually, I would say, for both stage and film, right? I don't ever want to see you, nudging me with your elbow, hey, isn't this funny? I don't want to know. You have to be dead serious. You have to be so dead serious that it makes me laugh about whatever this thing is that you're doing, Yeah. So it's not, but I will say the one thing that works for me on stage that doesn't work on film is when people, if they have to fake cry.
Okay.
On stage all day, I don't care because I can't see their face. If someone does the head in their hands and they're sobbing, I'll buy it. Yeah. But if it's on camera and someone does that, that's a no-no for me.
Wow. Okay. I just watched, and I won't call them out. I watched a recent show, and they had a kid crying, and I was like, they sort of like the hero finds the kid in there, and I was like, oh, why would you make a kid do that? Like crying like it was hard enough, but like this kid's probably 12 or 13 years old, or just like, and I'm like, okay, I mean, what are you gonna do? Like, I mean, that's hard enough as it is, much less having a kid do it. I was like, oh.
By the way, I am a monster. Most people are fine with it. Most people don't even care, but for me, whenever I see actors be like, and especially when they wipe a tear that isn't there, that sends me over the top.
I'll tell you and this is the weird things that make you cry in movies, which we don't have to get into. That could be a whole thing, but there was in the last Spider-Man movie, there was a major character dies, and it was like, and there's it's the big death scene, and like, it's like, going back and forth. And I was like, oh wow, this is really affecting it. Like, I'm like, okay. But I'm fine. Like, I'm just like, inside, I'm like, oh yeah, this is a big, oh wow, this is amazing. But that didn't affect me at all. But then later on, like the sort of like so I'm trying not to spoil it for people who haven't seen it, even though it's the most popular movie in the world right now. Another character like comes to the scene late, and he's across the way, and the main character looks up and just makes eye contact with him, and that just wrecked me. Like, he just conveys with his look exactly what happened, and you see the other actor take it in.
Oh,
and it was like, oh, like it caught. And I've watched it 3 times in theaters, and it gets me every time. And it's like, and it's all, I'm like, why? It's like the death. It's like, oh, that's so sad. But somehow the look, just the passing of information, and it's just a simple. And for all I know, those 2 actors were not on set at the same time. Like, it's just the magic of editing, because it's not a 2-shot. It's like shot in one shot in one shot. Yeah. But it's like it works.
Oh yeah,
it's great? That's the magic.
Yeah. The one thing I would say that is different. Although for me, it's not really different, because I believe comedy, again, with that rhythm and the music of it, like, and I'm usually doing comedy. When you're on a stage, you have to really direct the heck out of that. Like, you have to sort of offer to people, like, take more time with that. Give yourself,
yeah.
Whereas,
especially with newbies, when they want to rush to the punchline, it's like, no, give it a second, let it breathe. Yeah, the audience is with you.
Yeah, and with film, you can cut it together at any length you want.
And even with audio drama, I do the same thing too. It was sort of like, oh, you rushed that one. I'm putting in a 3-second pause there.
Right. Exactly. Yeah. So you have with theater, obviously you can't do that. So that's the thing, really. Right. I think the timing of things, the rushing, louder, faster, funnier, or let it breathe. Give it another beat. Like, that kind of stuff is probably really the only difference, I would say.
Okay.
Because when somebody's doing a film scene, if they need, especially if it's an emotional thing, they can take all the time in the world they want to get there.
Yeah.
Right. We'll just roll the camera, and then we'll edit the crap out of their performance, and it'll look like they, it's actually, it's a little bit easier on that level.
Yeah. It's almost like cheating.
Yeah, almost. Yeah.
I remember in Fight Club, there's a shot where Edward Norton like bares his teeth, and he has blood all on the inside of his mouth. That actually wasn't part of the scene. That was them off camera saying, "Hey, Edward, do you have blood in your mouth?" And like he was basically like turning to the camera and showing them like how much was still on his face, because it was part of the scene. It was thing, but their shot was so good.
Oh wow!
That Fincher just put it in the movie.
I've done that.
So he cuts it so it looks like the boss is saying something to him, and he's turning to him and showing him blood on his teeth as sort of like an intimidation thing. And it was like, oh, that was a completely manufactured thing. The magic of cinema.
Oh yeah, I love it when that stuff happens. We've totally used stuff like that in the movie that I'm cutting right now.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah. Yeah. There's a thing where a woman had to react to something, and we had 2 takes, and we didn't quite get the variety that we wanted. It just wasn't. Who knows if it was the end of the day, she was tired, who knows? We just didn't get it. And then we were just watching the takes without, we were just watching, and all of a sudden I was like, what was that? And it was that the camera was running when it wasn't supposed to be. and some noise had gone off, and everybody at the table, like, went like this and looked over.
Yeah.
And I was like, well, that's what we need. And so we used it. Yeah.
Brilliant.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that stuff.
All right. So then, okay. So we have 100 things going on then, a bunch of different projects. Like, what was the next sort of big one, I guess, that came along that wasn't just like a small piece of something you were trying to do?
I continued, let me see. I continued to shadow. I shadowed again. I shadowed on Scandal.
Yep. So you mentioned Scandal before. You Madam's Secretary. You talked about going in there. So, okay. So let's talk about that then.
Those happened
we talked
after
a little
the
bit
fellowship.
about that. But now let's compare and contrast then. So multicam shadowing versus single cam, like long, like an hour-long drama. What is the difference in the as the person who is not supposed to be on set as the fly on the wall? What is the difference in those two things? Because it's a lot longer of a time. First of all, it's not one night; it's a week.
It's very funny because, from a personal experience, multicam is like going to fun theater camp for a week. And a single cam 1 hour drama is like getting dropped into a hole for 10 days. And there's war going on around you.
Okay.
And then you come up for air, battered and broken, but excited about what you did. No, it's really intense. And especially when it's a drama, it's so intense. I mean, they're basically doing little movies, right? They shoot for what? Like, God, I guess you prep for 3 or 5 days and then you shoot for at least 10. I'm trying to remember what the schedule was, but it was a lot. It was a 3-week schedule at least.
Yeah. Whenever I watch like a intense like drama, especially like a sci-fi drama, and I see the director back to back, I was like, man, are you okay? Because like the amount of work you have to put into prep before you even are shooting, and to like be doing that at the same time as you're shooting an episode. Like,
oh my God, yes.
I hope your family missed you because you were gone.
Oh yeah, no, you can't. You could, because you have to be the first person on set and not the last person to leave, but like you're not leaving early, certainly.
Right.
And it's just, and you're always on. You're always, there. Even though you have a good first assistant director, first AD who runs the ship, and you have a team of incredible professionals. Like, it's glorious how it works, and they've all been doing it. Like, that's the difference between doing a movie and doing a TV show. Is these people,
right? Especially
if you're an episodic director, you're not doing the pilot. You're coming in when they've been doing this since they're in season 2 or season 3, so they have a rhythm and. They all know each other. They know their jobs. They've encountered just about all the obstacles, and and they love new obstacles because it makes their day more interesting. So that is it's similar, I guess, in that. Well, it's different in that you don't prep for multicam, right? But for single cam, you have to scout locations if it's not shot on a soundstage, right? Right. You have to scout locations. You have to sort of do a tone meeting. It's, going over the script and finding anything like, how many extras do you want for this scene? Right. Right. What's the look? Which wedding cake do you want for the, like, how do you have to hire stunt doubles if you're going to have stunt doubles? Those people actually come in and audition. It's not just like, oh, wow, you actually meet with those people. You have to hire the smaller parts of the show, the people who are not the series regulars.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. Or the aide who brings in the paper.
Yeah. Know? Yeah, you have to hire all those people, and
wow,
yeah, you have to figure out,
and that's all the director.
Oh yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously, it's not like the director.
Well, sure. I mean, there's a showrunner, and there's a production staff. I get that.
But for the most part, I believe my experience was that the director pretty much had the final say. The director picks the actors. The producers weigh in.
Sure.
Maybe what happens is the producer sends picks to the director, and then the director, out of the 5 people the producer sends forward, the director's like, I like 2 or 3, take, or that one, so that's interesting. And so it's all of the, yes. And then also you're talking with the set designer about how you want to shoot things to make sure, like, if you need to move a wall, you got to tell them we're going to move that wall. Right.
Right.
It's way more involved.
So for that, your shadowing from like day one, like director gets the script, you get the script, and you're following from there on?
Yes.
Wow. Okay, so it is almost a month, right?
No, it's when I think about
2 or 3
it,
weeks.
I think the shooting schedule that I was on was usually like 8 days of shooting, 7 or 8 days of shooting.
Oh, okay. So it was just shooting you were shadowing on?
And then you also did the 3 days of prep. So it was probably like
3 days of prep. Okay.
like 2 weeks. 2 weeks. Total.
Okay, 2 weeks.
Total.
Okay.
Yeah, that's actually right. Because when I was on Madam Secretary, I was there for 3 weeks, but that's because we were also finishing up the previous episode, and I got to watch that director work. And then I started on prep with the new director and went through the end of that episode. So I got a lot of experience on that one. And it's all of the steps, but it's all this microcosm, right? Like because it all has to happen in 11 days. Right.
So it's the military unit. It's like this, then this, then this, then this. It's like everything has to be precise and on time. And
you have to, you have to, okay, all of everything that's going to go on that screen has to go in front of your eyeballs first, pretty much. I mean, not everything. Like, I don't have to pick out the jeans that Susie's going to wear necessarily, although some directors.
But you're going to get a picture of somebody wearing the outfit and you have to approve that.
Yeah. Yes and no, not for just an everyday. Like if it's a series regular character and she's going to come down going to school, right? I don't have to approve her wardrobe unless there's some kind of like story point that I'm like, she can't be wearing red because later on the boyfriend says that red's his favorite color. You know what I mean? Like, if there's something that's my job to watch for that, to make sure that people don't, because that happens a lot where wardrobe people will get an idea or set people get an idea and you go, no, that doesn't work because it goes against story. So the director is the person who protects everything, protects the story from, carries the story forward. And so, but if there's special things like she gets her prom dress and it's a big deal, or the letter jacket or something, or he has to wear a tiara, the director's going to pick which tiara.
Okay.
So if it's a story point, the director will have something to say about it.
Yeah. So in that 2 week time, do you ever see the writer? Do you talk to the writer? Or is it like by the time the director gets involved, the script is locked and they're already on to the next thing?
No. On television, the writer is king. You see the writer all the time.
Okay.
The writer is on set, and I'm sure it's different for different shows.
Well, sure. Yeah. In your experience is all I'm asking.
But I will say, depending on the writer and I guess when I was doing Madam Secretary, the writer was Barbara Hall, so she was also the showrunner and creator.
Oh, hey, that's pretty good if you get like a showrunner written episode.
Yeah.
That usually means it's a really pivotal episode or something important is going to happen.
Yeah, it was the finale, and she was great, but she was also pretty chill about, like, Barbara Hall is the writer who goes, "You're the director. We're in our 3rd season. You know what you're doing." Like, she's not going to comment on the acting or directing as much. I mean, she will if there's a problem, but for her, she's a little bit, where some writers are on a Shonda Rhimes show, they know what Shonda wants and what Shonda gets, what Shonda wants. So if largely what I saw the director do there, he would tweak performance a little bit. But for the most part, the writer would be the one who would say, "Hey, can he say this with a little more oomph?" Or and the writer says that to the director, and then the director goes to the actor and says, "Can you say it with a little more, very interesting."
And so on Scandal, Shonda Rhimes was there?
No. She's back in the writer's room working on the next script.
Okay.
But the writer...
And also probably 3 other shows that she's writing at the same time.
Exactly. but the writer of that episode was on set. And so by Video Village, which is where we watch everything, it's like the director, the script supervisor, and the writer. And you're the team, you're the core team that sits at Video Village and watches everything go down. And the writer tells the director, "I need this. I want more of this."
Wow.
Yeah. Now the writer's not going to say, "Can we get a 2-shot of that?" No.
Oh yeah. No. Yeah.
But yes,
there's a level. Yeah.
But if if the writer's like, "We really need to hear that the actor needs to say that," you know what I mean? A lot of times, and even on multicam, like the director will, before multicam, like the director never says "moving on" until she turns around, looks to the writers and says, Are you good? Writers get what they want.
Okay.
Yeah. It's very cool. It's very different than indie film, right?
Right, exactly. Or they you'd be lucky to get a day pass.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. No, writers on films never expect to be brought to the set,
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, but no, it's totally different. It's very cool. The writers know the world.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah.
So what was the did you feel any differences between the two? I mean, obviously they're both hour-long dramas. They're both politically minded and stuff too.
Yep.
But obviously different networks, different crew, different intention. What was the differences in sort of feeling and energy between the different shows and how they were running it? Like, did you notice a lot of difference? Like, oh, that's not how they do things over there. Oh, they do this differently over on this one.
Yeah, that's a good question. I don't. Scandal had a faster pace just because of the way that they shoot, right? Like if you watch a Shonda Rhimes show, there's like 90 different angles and there's lots of cutting and there's a lot of sort of camera tricks and things. I just watched Inventing Anna, which is her thing.
Oh,
maybe not with Bridgerton. I don't think Bridgerton does this, but Inventing Anna has a kind of Scandal quality to it where it's just, there's a lot of cutting and visual and like it's an excitement. I want to say soapy kind of feel to it, right?
Okay.
So that requires quite a bit of that. You just have to get a lot more done.
If you're gonna have 10 cuts in the course of 2 minutes, that's 10 setups.
Yeah, yeah. So I would say Scandal was a little bit more intense like that. It was really like go, go, go. There were times on the Madam Secretary set where for me as an indie filmmaker, I was dying, because I was like, what are we all standing around? Like it was when they knew they had an easy scene and they had like an hour and a half or 2 hours to do it, they would sort of like do it like this, and I am trained not to ever do that. Like, just get it done. Go home early if you can, which they also did. They also did on Madam Secretary. There was a couple of days where, they kind of got done and they were done. And they did a great job. It wasn't lazy. It was a great show, but it just didn't, the episode that I was on didn't have a lot of like army scenes and crazy action.
Right.
Like it was pretty much people talking and walking and you just had to make that look beautiful and get good performances and hear the words. And that was,
I remember hearing there was a guest actor. I'm trying to think who, it might have been Sarah Silverman, who got to guest star on The Good Wife and like had never been to a set of a big hour-long drama, prestige television stuff too.
What?
And she was like, it had never really been. It's like, oh my gosh, this is like, I get to see like a big network television show. And she's like, and it was so like disappointing, but sort of like, oh, you're just doing the same stuff we do on the independent set. Like she said, she watched this scene where Christine Baranski has to go in the office and yell at something that basically, like lay down the law and other stuff. And then Christine Baranski turns and takes a powerful step out of camera and then has to turn sideways and shrink down and crawl to get to the other side. like, oh, okay, it's the same stuff everywhere,
Oh yeah. Yeah. I think that was where I learned the, what do they call it? The process. It's something a process when they have to show people riding in a car at night. What do they call it? Poor man's process.
Poor man's process.
Right?
Yeah. Where there's a couple Teamsters with 2x4s just quietly shaking the car.
I could not believe that when I saw it. And now I watch for it all the time. It's like a thing. I'm like, oh, they're not really driving.
Right.
I love that stuff. That stuff is really cool.
Like look in the background and, see that it's just a looping animation.
Yeah. Yeah. So it was way, way more intense than comedy. People are getting tortured and, a lot going on.
And that's where we're going to stop the conversation for today. If you'd like to hear more of Mandy's voice, she's got her very own podcast. It's called The Mand Cave, hosted in collaboration with her friend, Mandy Kaplan. You'll find it wherever the finest podcasts are found. Thanks so much for listening. This has been the next chapter in the Curiosity Codex, but there are still many pages left to decipher. We're part of the True Story FM family of podcasts. Find out more about us at truestory.fm. Our theme music is Intrusion by Severed Personality, aka Kevin MacLeod. The voice of the Codex is Vicky Hall. Find her on the web at vickyhall.squarespace.com. And my name is Kyle Olson.
The Codex is closed. For now.